It's either Christian nationalism or democracy. You can't have both. Now, this comes from the article that I just mentioned from Only Sky Media. Matter of fact, an aside that on the Only Sky Media is now the new home of atheist writers who that used to be on Patheos. So you all make sure you guys check this out. And this
Mm.
particular article was written by Marcus Johnson, and it's an opinion piece. And basically, he was talking about how there is a growing faction of folk they call, like, basically have traversed from white evangelical to Christian nationalists, who has a tendency to be quite problematic in their political ideologies. They have a tendency to be a bit more xenophobic. They have a tendency to have more ideas that are considered racist. And
Mhm.
they also have a tendency to storm the Capitol on January 6th to say that the elections were rigged. And and I just wanted to mention that, one of the things that we kind of forget, I think, sometimes, and 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 I was even thinking about this specifically when we were talking, because we've been talking about Christian nationalists on the nonprofits for a while now.
Oh yeah.
And one of the things that some people kind of get surprised, I suppose, about them even existing. But I think that we forget that Christian nationalist ideas have been around just as long as there have been the United States and beyond. You know, because, like, there's going to be certain, you know, political, theological, whatever type of leanings that people of this, ilk happen to possess. And they even have, like, some of the same things that they may balk against, like, with other religions, like, let's just say, for instance, Islam. Islamic religions, or being Muslim, about, well, we don't want Sharia law. But this is exactly the same type of
They
of
just want their
notion or
version of it.
idea that they want to bring, but they want to do it in a Christian worldview, right? Now, I even talk about this particular author. His name is Robert P. Jones. He is the CEO of PRRI, and also he is the author of this wonderful book called White Too Long. I recommend everybody check it out. But one of the things that they quoted in this particular article was that he said, for more than 2 decades, I've studied the attitudes of religiously affiliated Americans across the country, and over and year over year, in question after question, in public opinion polls, a clear pattern has emerged. White Christians are consistently more likely than whites who are religiously unaffiliated to deny the existence of structural racism. And this is, and I really just, like, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to everybody else, but this is something that we just really just have to think about, like, who, if you're going to say that we're going to open it up, that this idea of being, like, I guess, like, Christian nationalist or what have you, is should be acceptable, but we still want a democracy, which will be encompassing of a plethora of different ideas. What do we want?
Well, these are the people that you see with the most flags hanging from their trucks. They like the ideology of, like, this is America, this is democracy. They love this, but they don't actually like the ideas behind democracy. Because, but they've been in charge of things for so long that they're not even thinking about them being outside of that democracy has changed, or that the people have changed, and that the will of the people is no longer their will anymore. So that's why you get the white Christian nationalists suddenly having problems. Like, it's been going our way for so long. The election couldn't have gone that way. Obviously, it was rigged because we're winners. But occasionally, you fucking lose.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you on that, Josh, completely. And I was going to say something very similar. Is they've gotten so used to having their own way here.
Mm.
They've gotten so used to being the ones, quote unquote, in charge and making the rules and stuff like that. And now that people are saying, "Hey, look, sit the fuck down. because you're not the only ones that are capable of running the show here. And now they're freaking out about it. And that's why I think we're hearing a lot more voices in that sort of spectrum of hatred, or whatever you want to put it, because they've lost control. Not, not completely, obviously, but it's coming, and they're not going to be the ones that are the powerhouse politicians and governors and etc.
Well, the ideology may be in the minority, but another issue that
But they're loud.
they're loud and they're organized, because
Yeah.
what I was going to say is that, a lot of lawmakers in local areas are writing laws to actually expand this Christian national type
Yeah.
idea. I mean, this is why we're seeing abortion rights being, chipped away at on the state and municipal levels. This is why we're seeing, at least about, I want to say the last time I checked, there was like over 15 or 20 states that have like some type of either voting on bills to ban CRT in their public schools, or they are or they're in talk, or they or have actually passed laws to ban, CRT, teaching of it, even though I keep saying this, but CRT is not taught in schools, y'all. I'm just trying to, it's history. It's history, and also we're even seeing like, the banning of transgender students from playing sports. Like, this and like all of this is because these are the people that's like actually in seats of power. I mean, and they have been planning this stuff for a long time. Matter of fact, I want to quote something from the article that stated that Christian nationalists are increasingly attracted to
Authoritarian.
Yes, authoritarianism. Say that 5 times fast. And a political system where one small group makes the political decisions and the rest of society is shut out. In a Christian nationalist vision of America, religious minorities, ethnic minorities, and other marginalized groups will have fewer political rights and won't be able to fully participate. Christians would make the political decisions, they would control the social order, and they would dominate the culture. Enforcing this kind of system would be akin to erasing generations of social and cultural progress in the United States, and it would mean reverting back to a political system of a century ago where women and racial minorities were not able to fully participate in American democracy.
Yeah.
What's terrifying is this is a base that, like, they're not the highest numbers, but they're more motivated than almost all the other bases that I talk to. I'm mostly friends with people on the left, but they showed up for the last presidential election, and that's about it. And then you get all the power in other areas of the government that's being ignored by our side. And the people that are Christian nationalists, they're motivated. They're taking every little chip of the government that they can get to hold on to this power. And like you mentioned that CRT isn't taught in schools, but they're going to use that as a talking point anyways, because it scares old white people into voting for them.
I mean, that's how Youngkins got into office. He said that he was going to ban transgender students from playing in sports, and he was going to ban CRT, and he was going to ban abortion. And people was like, "Yes, let's put him." And then like they said, "Well, he has a black lieutenant governor, but she just as bad as him because she's a black woman that's saying basically the same problematic rhetoric." And that's not going to be the thing that's going to move us forward. But Neil, take it away.
Well, as my notes has said, as a Canadian, I kind of feel bad for you guys because it seems like your whole political spectrum there is circling the drain. You know what I mean? So you can't have religious influence in government. It's
Right.
just it's always been problematic, and it always will be problematic. That's I made a note that reading some of these stories, it led me to thinking shades of The Handmaid's Tale. Like it's just like a theocracy is going to end up taking over you guys down there, and it scares the crap out of me because a lot of people up here in Canada, like I had personally had a relative that said, "Oh, I miss Trump." What?
It's weird, but I've heard of people like all the way in Australia that are backing that kind of a mindset.
That's ridiculous.
I've seen marches in even Asian countries for Trump. I've
Mm.
seen marches in Nigeria for and in support of Trump. And
Well,
and one of the things that I wanted to, also bring up is that, there what is the what's one some of the issues that is allowing this no these notions to prevail is, folk who may consider themselves progressive or leftists or what have you, have kind of a laissez-faire way of that they think about politics. And
mm,
I mean, like, I know that I've haven't been all my life, a person that paid attention to politics. That kind of happened much later in life, because I saw that when you don't pay attention to politics, you get, you know, people like Trump, and you get people like Youngkins, and you get people who are not, and even on considered like people who are on the left, who say they're leftists but their politics don't, reflect that.
don't adhere
Like,
to that. Yeah.
yeah, they don't adhere to that. I mean, they, we even see this, like, in the Senate now, like, people who say, well, I'm Democrat, but like they're voting, very, I don't even say like conservative leading, but they vote alt right. And some of the things that they happen to, really cleave to is alt right. And, and it would behoove us all to really, start to like pay attention to this stuff. And then like when you like have like people who may be in like these governmental positions who say that they're left, but they're kind of like, apathetic when it comes to being more to paying more attention and really listening to their constituency, then you have their constituency leaving them because they think that they don't care about them.
That's right.
And this is why this type of thing prevails.
The problem is the left isn't willing to fight dirty, and the right definitely has shown that they're willing to bend the rules to fit their narrative. That's why they got a Supreme Court justice in under the wire when we had a bigger time frame for Obama to get somebody in before 45 came in. So like we need to be fighting a little bit more aggressive. I'm not saying like go completely dirty, but like if they've exploited something, the left needs to exploit, and then we need to take it on the individual level. Like for the longest time, I wasn't very political at all, and it was so much nicer in life. I was so much happier being ignorant. But if you look at me, I'm one of those people that could afford to be ignorant. And as soon as I caught on to the world around me, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of like I'm saying I support minorities, but I'm not doing anything about it. So I'm part of the problem. So eventually, I had to step up into it, and we need more people having that light bulb go off in their head, and start taking action on every level of the political system. Go ahead, Neil. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
talking too much.
Well, I just want to say that you gotta make sure that you don't get people into positions where they can lead other people into believing that they can now voice their opinions on racism and bigotry and transphobia or whatever. Like it's okay to call these people out or make jokes about them or just trash on them in general. Because if you're like that as a constituent or a governor or even a president, like good old 45 there, now you've opened it so that people say, oh, so I can actually say stuff like this now.
Mm.
It's okay to be a douchebag now. All right, well, hey, I'm gonna open my douchebag up wide and show the world how much of a jerk I actually am.
Yeah, and I just wanted to surround out this whole thing with shout out to J Mike when he said it's crazy to think that there can even possibly favor a false narrative that
Mm.
makes them or Christian nationalists feel that they can justify their potential racism, homophobia, and transphobia.
He
You
put it
know,
much more eloquently than I did.
Right. And actually, I just want to go back a little bit. He said, given that these facts are easily accessible, like, when he talks about the rhetoric, it appears that we have to figure out a way to really hammer this point home so there's no false foundational basis for Christians to find themselves in so comfortably, to be able to tout their particular notions that are extremely problematic.
I like the sounds of a hammer. That works.
Yeah, bang. I'm all about that.
Attitude adjustment tool.
Exactly. We're going to put that in like an emoji or something like that.
Yeah.